The honey sitting in your kitchen looks harmless, golden, pure, natural. But what if I told you that the honey most of us eat today would have shocked our ancestors, and that your body reacts to it more like junk sugar than medicine? For thousands of years, honey was treated as liquid gold. It healed wounds, preserved food, and even protected the dead. Yet the jar you buy at the supermarket can trigger blood sugar spikes, inflammation, and confusion in your immune system. So what changed? Not you, the honey. Welcome to Old World Mastery, where we bring back the skills, tools, and wisdom that kept our ancestors alive for centuries. In this video, we're going to uncover how real honey was made in the Old World and why modern honey is often little more than industrial sugar wearing a natural label. Here's what you'll discover: how medieval beekeepers worked with almost wild bees and why those colonies were tougher than today's pampered hives. How plant diversity once turned every jar into a powerful medicinal cocktail. How modern heating, filtering, and storage quietly destroy almost everything that made honey healing. What this does to your blood sugar, your gut, and your immune system. How to find real honey today, or even produce it yourself using simple traditional methods. By the end, you'll never look at a jar of honey the same way again, and you'll know exactly what to look for if you want honey that heals instead of harms. Before we dive deep, tell us in the comments, do you eat honey regularly, and how does it make you feel afterwards? Energized and satisfied, or sleepy, hungry, maybe even with heartburn? Share your experience. We'll pin one of the most interesting comments for others to learn from. 1. Honey then versus honey now, a shocking experiment. In the early 1980s, researchers at the University of Waikato in New Zealand ran an experiment that should have changed the honey industry forever. They compared ordinary supermarket honey versus raw honey from traditional unheated hives, managed in a way very close to medieval practice. The result? The supermarket honey showed almost no measurable antibacterial activity. The traditional honey strongly inhibited tough antibiotic-resistant bacteria, such as certain strains of Staphylococcus. The effect was so impressive that doctors began using carefully produced medical honeys in hospitals to help with wound care. But here's the catch: that medical honey is not what you get in a plastic squeeze bottle from a discount store. It comes from bees kept on specific plants. It's cold extracted, never heated, and it's so labor-intensive it can cost 10 times more than regular honey. In the medieval world, that kind of honey was the norm. Every jar was effectively medical honey because no one yet knew how to ruin it. 2. The bees themselves, from wild colonies to factory insects. Let's start where all honey begins, with the bees. Medieval bees in the Old World were bee colonies were wild, or at least semi-wild. They lived in hollow trees, woven straw hives called skeps, or simple boxes without movable wooden frames. The bees decided where to build their combs, how big the cells would be, and when to swarm. The beekeeper's role was minimal: set up a shelter, protect it from animals and thieves, and harvest a portion of the combs once a year at the end of summer. The result was high genetic diversity. Bees bred naturally with whatever drones were in the area. Hardy colonies. Aggressive at times, yes, but they survived winters and disease without constant human intervention. Modern bees, now that picture is reversed. Bees are forced into standardized wooden frames with stamped wax sheets that dictate the cell size. Queens are often artificially inseminated from selected drones, so the offspring have traits the industry wants: gentleness, maximum honey production, and disease resistance. This intense breeding has a price. Genetic diversity collapses. Modern bees become dependent. They're calm and productive, but many can't survive a single winter without sugar feeding, medications, and constant monitoring. We've turned a wild forest creature into a kind of factory animal, efficient but fragile. Quick question for you. Would you rather eat honey from tough, half-wild bees living in a mixed landscape, or from ultra-bred bees trucked from one monoculture field to another? Type wild or industrial in the comments so we can see where you stand. 3. From 200 flowers to 1, how the landscape changed the honey. Old World diversity. A medieval hive in a European forest or meadow might draw nectar from more than 200 different plant species in a single season: linden, willow, blackberry, clover, thyme, lavender, wild herbs, fruit trees, forest flowers, and shrubs. Each plant contributed enzymes, pollen, essential oils, plant chemicals such as flavonoids and phenolic acids. Together, they created a honey that was chemically complex and deeply alive. Hundreds of bioactive compounds, enzymes like glucose oxidase, which slowly generate tiny amounts of hydrogen peroxide, a natural antiseptic, a wide spectrum of aromas and medicinal properties. Modern monocultures. Now contrast that with today. Hives are loaded onto trucks and driven to gigantic fields of just one single plant: rapeseed, sunflower, acacia, and so on. For weeks, the bees see almost nothing else in bloom. The result? Honey from just one major nectar source, high in sugar but much poorer in plant chemicals, less complexity, less diversity, and far less healing power. And it gets worse. To squeeze out maximum harvest, many commercial beekeepers take most of the honey, then feed the bees cheap sugar syrup to get them through winter or poor seasons. The bees store that syrup in the combs, so the final product in your jar is often a blend of real floral nectar and industrial sugar that bees were never meant to eat in such quantities. Traditional beekeepers did the opposite. They took less honey and always left enough for the bees to feed themselves with their own nutrient-rich food. Each plant contributed enzymes, pollen, essential oils, plant chemicals such as flavonoids and phenolic acids. Together, they created a honey that was chemically complex and deeply alive. Hundreds of bioactive compounds, enzymes like glucose oxidase, which slowly generate tiny amounts of hydrogen peroxide, a natural antiseptic, a wide spectrum of aromas and medicinal properties. Modern monocultures. Now contrast that with today. Hives are loaded onto trucks and driven to gigantic fields of just one single plant: rapeseed, sunflower, acacia, and so on. For weeks, the bees see almost nothing else in bloom. The result? Honey from just one major nectar source, high in sugar but much poorer in plant chemicals, less complexity, less diversity, and far less healing power. And it gets worse. To squeeze out maximum harvest, many commercial beekeepers take most of the honey, then feed the bees cheap sugar syrup to get them through winter or poor seasons. The bees store that syrup in the combs, so the final product in your jar is often a blend of real floral nectar and industrial sugar that bees were never meant to eat in such quantities. Traditional beekeepers did the opposite. They took less honey and always left enough for the bees to feed themselves with their own nutrient-rich food. 4. Harvesting and processing, where honey dies. This is the part almost nobody thinks about. Medieval processing, gentle and simple. In the old world, harvesting honey was slow and careful. The beekeeper cut pieces of comb from the hive. The comb either drained naturally in a cloth over a bowl or was gently crushed and pressed through linen by hand. That was it. No heating, no pumps or metal pipes, no ultra-fine filters. The honey flowed at room temperature. The coarse cloth removed large wax chunks and bee parts, but it let pollen, propolis, and the full range of bioactive substances pass through. This honey looked cloudy, was thick and sometimes flecked with tiny wax particles, often crystallized after weeks or months, a natural sign that the sugars were intact and the honey hadn't been overheated. Modern processing, turning medicine into sugar. Commercial honey goes through a very different journey. Centrifuging. Frames are spun at high speed to fling the honey out of the cells. On its own, that's not terrible. It's what comes next: heating. The honey is heated to around 60 to 80 degrees Celsius, or 140 to 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Why? To make it thinner so it moves quickly through pumps and filters. To delay crystallization because customers think solid honey is spoiled. To kill yeasts that might cause fermentation. But at these temperatures, key enzymes like diastase and invertase become inactive. Glucose oxidase, responsible for much of honey's antibacterial effect, is damaged. Heat-sensitive vitamins and antioxidants break down. What's left is mostly just fructose and glucose, chemically still sugar, but biologically half dead. Ultrafiltration. The warmed honey is pushed through extremely fine filters. These remove not only wax and debris, but also pollen. Why remove pollen? Pollen reveals where a honey truly comes from. By analyzing pollen, labs can pinpoint the region, sometimes even the valley where bees foraged. That makes it much harder to disguise cheap imports or blends of honey adulterated with rice syrup, corn syrup, or synthetic sugar. For industrial producers, pollen is inconvenient evidence. For your body, pollen is one of the most nutritious parts of honey. It carries protein and amino acids, B vitamins and minerals, immune-modulating compounds. Honey without pollen is like bread baked without grain. It looks the part, but the substance is gone. 5. Storage, aging versus maturing. Old methods. Traditional honey was stored in clay jars, wooden barrels sealed with wax or animal membranes. These containers kept moisture out, allowed a tiny amount of gas exchange, let the honey mature. Enzymes continued to work slowly, flavors deepened, the honey became more complex over time, much like wine in a cask.